Hi guys, welcome back to another extremely short video about WHO updates in the myeloid neoplasms. We are continuing with mastocytosis, which I had started last time. So I had told you that I'll tell you in short. I had discussed some part of mastocytosis, cutaneous, systemic, etc. I had told you what genes are important and what is VAF, and it is more than 10% is significant. So I will tell you finally what are the types and subtypes. So cutaneous, systemic, and mast cell sarcoma. Now mastocytosis has these three major subtypes in the current WHO classification. Cutaneous has urticaria pigmentosa, diffuse cutaneous mastocytosis, and cutaneous mastocytoma, which is isolated or multilocalized. Fine, just like say um, Hanschler Christian's kind of a thing. It's something like that. All right, and then comes systemic mastocytosis. So bone marrow involvement has become very important. And I had taken this last time. At bone marrow involved by, supposing you get a bone marrow which is involved by mastocytosis and not other areas, yet it comes under systemic. So they are stressing a lot upon involvement of the bone marrow now. Fine. So it has become a separate entity. Fine. So indolent systemic mastocytosis, smoldering systemic mastocytosis. So wherever there's a smoldering, there's always an aggressive variant. Fine. And systemic mastocytosis associated with other neoplasms, hematological neoplasms and mast cell leukemia. Finally, mast cell sarcoma. They also have a note that well-differentiated systemic mastocytosis represents a morphological variant that may occur in SM type, that is systemic mastocytosis, including mast cell leukemias. Fine. So a well-differentiated sarcoma, WDSM, can also be a part of the systemic mastocytosis spectrum, which is otherwise a separate entity. So finally, mastocytosis has been redefined. CD30, any KIT mutation are now minor diagnostic criteria. Bone marrow is a new subtype in systemic mastocytosis. And KIT D816V mutation with VAF more than 10% qualifies as a B finding. This summary box is what you need to remember. Okay. Now, okay, in addition, bone marrow mastocytosis, as I told you, is a separate entity, and basal serum tryptase below 125 Ng per ml. In most patients with well-differentiated systemic mastocytosis, KIT codon 816 is not detected. In well-differentiated systemic mastocytosis, you might not have this mutation detected. And neoplastic mast cells are negative for 25 too, but positive for 30. So you remember the summary box, CD30 and CKIT, then bone marrow involvement, and then 816 mutations with VAF more than 10%. Now coming to MDS, I am going to be taking MDS in extremely short. Like there's just one more slide after this. Because I'm not stopping with MDS with this presentation. MDS में सबसे ज़्यादा changes हैं, what I presume, what I feel after reading the article, that CCUS, CHIP, INCA, cycus, if you see, there are so many entities, but they have included CCUS and CHIP. All this is a spectrum of MDS. MDS has always been that entity which either people really love or people really hate. Why? Because either you are not able to understand what to call MDS, or you get where to call MDS, and then you get extremely interested in this kind of a disease spectrum. So, and it is like you get gray zone areas in breast. So I feel that's what MDS is. It is a gray zone area of hemat morphologically. But molecular has just like helped. I mean, if you see, CNS and blood were the first two areas where molecular actually was being used way back. Now renal etc are coming into picture, but so molecular has helped this spectrum of MDS a lot. Molecular and cytogenetics are the backbone of diagnosing MDS. One entity which not only can it depends on morphology but also on morphology and cytogenetics. If you see an OR rod, you can still say it's an AML. But if you see dysbiosis, it doesn't mean it is MDS. It can be a simple B12 deficiency. It could be there are long list of secondary MDS. Why it is happening? So I feel that is why we will take time in discussing MDS. So I'll, break it up into really short lectures to discuss MDS, so that every time I come, it's a very short injection of, okay, this is MDS, and then we can go back and revise the next time I upload. All right. So MDS, here you see again blast, cytogenetics, and mutations. Okay. Now MDS has been divided into MDS for defining genetic abnormalities and MDS morphologically defined. So what are the MDS for defining genetic abnormalities? That is MDS with low blast and isolated 5q. You know about MDS 5q. Now it is with low blast, less than 5% in bone marrow, less than 2% in peripheral blood, and 5q deletion alone, or with one other abnormality like monosomy 7 or 7q deletion. MDS with low blast, so one is 5q, again is SF3B1 mutation. And there's a rider with SF3B1 mutation that detection of greater than 15% ring sideroblasts may substitute for SF3B1 mutation. Acceptable related terminology, that is MDS with low blasts and ring syndrome. So you had about 5q, no rider with that. Next comes MDS with low blast and SF3B1 mutation. In such a case, you might sometimes get a lot of ring sideroblasts which are more than 15%. You all know we do pearls for MDS. So in a case where you are getting a lot of ring sideroblasts with dysbiosis, and in MDS you have to go for cytogenetics and molecular, you also get SF3B1. So you get two things and you label it in this. If you get just 15% ring sideroblasts, you still label it as SF3B1 mutation category. If you get no ring sideroblasts and SF3B1, either can substitute each other to put MDS in this category. MDS with biallelic TP53 inactivation, pro prognosis by TP53. Alright, less than 20% blast, and it is complex karyotype. Two or more TP53 mutations, or one mutation with evidence of TP53 copy number loss or CNL loss of heterozygosity. Okay, then. So you see blasts are less in the defining genetic criteria, either it's less than 5% or less than 20. What is there that you have to see is 5q, SF3B1 and BAT TP53. Morphologically, MDS with low blasts as above, and then just add one more word, genetic abnormality, and it comes into this category. Hypoplastic MDS, there's a rider with it. Less than 25% bone marrow cellularity, which is age adjusted, is known as hypoplastic. Okay, so in an 80-year-old man, you get dysbiosis. Of course, the marrow cellularity will be 20%, so you will not call that hypoplastic. But a 19-year-old girl gets dysbiosis and the marrow cellularity is 25-22%, that is hypoplastic MDS. Okay. MDS with increased blast, now decrease, so you can say MDS decreased blast, two columns. Morphologically defined, genetically defined. Genetically defined, SF3B1, 5q, and by TP53. Morphologically low blast, less than 5%, less than 2%. Then comes MDS hypoplastic, then comes MDS with excess blast or increased blast. IB1, IB2, and then a new entity, MDS with fibrosis. IB1, 5 to 9% in bone marrow, 2 to 4% in peripheral smear. So EB has become IB. Fibrosis, 5 to 19% in bone marrow, 2 to 19% in peripheral. So terminologies have been mixed up as far as MDS is concerned. MDS की जगह they are now trying to replace it with MDN, just like MPN, to replace syndrome, underscoring the neoplastic nature and harmonizing terminology with MPN. They're trying to, undermine, I mean, the fact that it's not just a syndrome, it is more of a neoplasm. They're trying to, get that message across. These clonal hematopoietic neoplasms are defined by cytopenias and dysplasias as indicated above. Cytopenia definitions are adopted by consistency across CCUS, MDA. मतलब there are cytopenia किसको कहेंगे, that has always been defined. Platelet less than 1 lakh, neutrophil count, then your hemoglobin count, all that less than low 10 and all that criteria. So when is it called cytopenia? It is defined for every entity. Additionally, recommended threshold for dysplasia is set at 10% of all lineages. You all know MDS entities are now grouped as those having defined injective abnormality and that morphologically defined. So this is the last slide for today. Now slowly we'll start taking up hypoplastic MDS, childhood MDS, MDS with AML, generically defined MDS in detail. All right. So till then, just try and absorb what I have told you today. Read the paper if possible, and then I'll get back to you next time. Thank you.